The Pokemon anime may have just revealed something giant about Pokemon Legends EA, as well as just the Pokemon world and lore in general. Let's get right into that. Welcome back to the Lumiose Post, where we talk about all things Pokemon, and today we're going to be talking about Rockurium, an element that was introduced in Pokemon Horizons, and how it really might tie into Kalos very heavily, Mega Evolution, all these sorts of things. But, first we need to go ahead and get this out of the way. A quick disclaimer, this will obviously discuss some spoilers for Pokemon Horizons. Now, currently, it's at a pretty high point. I think it's like episode 83, 84 in Japan. That's where I'm at. So if you're watching the English dub, you might be a little bit behind. So save this for later and watch this when you want to. Now, with that out of the way, one more disclaimer. Let's put on our tinfoil hats for this one because it's going to get really, really crazy. Okay, so in Pokemon Horizons, you have something called Rockurium. And guys, I promise this all ties into the game, something that you care very much about. Rockurium is this kind of element. It's also called the Eternal Blessing. It's just kind of this element, this sort of MacGuffin of Horizons. It doesn't seem to be a huge deal, but it is capable of a couple of things. For one, it's capable of allowing Pokemon to become really, really powerful. For two, it is also capable of apparently giving immortality. As in the most recent episode of Horizons, the Rising Volt Tacklers were discussing how Gibeon, a character who was around in the days of Lico's ancestor Lucius, is still around now, and they basically come to the conclusion that's because of Rockurium. Now, what's interesting about Rockurium is that it is an element only found in Rockwa, and Rockwa seems to be fictitious to the anime only. There's not been really any hints to it in the games, but I think that this could be somewhere near Kalos, or could be tied to Kalos in origin, even if it's just in the history of this, like how the Ruinous Quartet are actually not from Paldea, but are very much tied to Paldea in their origins. So first off, I just want to go ahead and get this out of the way. The Anastar Sundial, I think, might actually be Rockurium. Now, let's get the basic, obvious out of the way. The Anastar Sundial looks a lot like Rockurium. It's this pink crystalline rock structure. So yeah, sure, it looks really similar. But there's more to it than that. So what we know about Rockurium is that, for one, it is able to amplify Pokemon's powers, but kind of at the cost of the Pokemon's sanity. And for two, it is a sort of life source. This is what the Rising Volt Tacklers have come to the conclusion of. Now, interestingly enough, this fits very well with the Anastar Sundial. So, the Anastar Sundial is tied to Infinity Energy. How do we know this? Well, because the Anastar Sundial is tied to Mega Evolutions. By exposing your Mega Ring to the Anastar Sundial, you are able to see hidden Mega Stones across the Kalos region. Now, the Anastar Sundial's origins, as well as like the kind of why and how, are largely unanswered, but that's because Professor Sycamore is still researching this phenomenon. However, you do know that it is tied to Mega Evolution. It is by exposing your Mega Ring to this sundial that you're able to find these other Mega Stones at certain times of days. So, now this is interesting because Mega Evolution is basically using Infinity Energy. And Infinity Energy is life energy. So you're seeing the connection there. It is literally connected to Infinity Energy, life energy, and Rockurium is a life source, is able to grant immortality. Furthermore, we know that the Ultimate Weapon, a device that was fired by AZ 3,000 years ago in the Kalos region, is also capable of granting immortality. It gave AZ immortality, and it also gave his Floette, the Eternal Flower Floette, immortality as well. So another little tie that Infinity Energy has to Rockurium. Furthermore, too, like I said, Rockurium is able to make a Pokemon stronger, but at the cost of kind of its sanity. We see Pokemon go berserk when they are exposed to this Rockurium. Now, this is interesting because this is very similar to Mega Evolution. Obviously, we know that Mega Evolution allows a Pokemon to access a certain power, like beyond itself. A Pokemon can evolve further. Traditionally, a Pokemon only evolves twice. Charmander evolves into Charmeleon, Charmeleon evolves into Charizard, and that's it. But with the power of Mega Evolution, Charizard is able to evolve even further into either Charizard X or Charizard Y. Mega Charizard X, Mega Charizard Y. Now, at the moment, this is only limited to specific Pokemon, but it's been theorized for a while that we could see this kind of change, because Mega Evolution is the only gimmick that is exclusive to certain Pokemon. Every other gimmick, Z-moves, Dynamax, Terastal, while there may be special forms or special Z-moves that only certain Pokemon can access, every Pokemon can use a Z-move, every Pokemon can Dynamax, and every Pokemon can Terastallize. So this is kind of, Mega Evolution's always been the oddball out, and people have always thought that there might be an equivalent to it. And now you might be going, okay, but Rockurium clearly does something different. We see when Spinel uses it on his Umbreon, Umbreon goes nuts. This isn't like Mega Evolution. Isn't it, though? I mean, think back to Mega Evolution, what we know about it. We've seen in the anime when Karina Mega Evolves her Lucario, it used to also go nuts. I mean, tell me that the way it acts in Ash's battle against it, their very first battle, Pikachu versus Mega Lucario, it doesn't act similar to how Spinel's Umbreon reacts to this Rockurium. It's almost exactly the same. Furthermore, we know from the Generation 7 Dex entries for Mega Evolutions that Mega Evolution is kind of a painful process and can even kind of irritate the Pokemon so much that it just kind of goes into a blind rage. So, you know, yeah, we like to think of Mega Evolution as this nice thing because it gives us some of our favorite designs, but frankly, it works a lot like Rockurium. Now, back to the Anastar Sundial. Like I said, the Anastar Sundial is largely unknown in its origins. Now, it's very possible that the Anastar Sundial could have been from Rockwa, and just the reason no one knows that is because Rockwa, as we see in Pokemon Horizons, is a largely undiscovered, in fact, even fabled place. Some people don't even believe it actually exists. So, all of this is just really, really interesting, and I think really does set the stage for Anastar Sundial actually being made of Rockurium, being like a large deposit of it. Or it could be that this is all just a fluke that there happens to be Rockurium here in the Kalos region, because Rockurium is actually not from Rockwa and just happens to be found in Rockwa because of another Pokemon, Diancie. Now, Diancie is a Pokemon from the Kalos region, so this would explain why there's a Sundial in the Kalos region, and people have long kind of thought that Diancie might be tied to the Anastar Sundial, purely because Diancie is made out of this pink crystalline gem structure, very similar to the Sundial, or also to Rockurium, and also because Diancie is capable of Mega Evolving, and again, you see that kind of connection to the Anastar Sundial with it having a connection to Mega Evolution. We also do know that Diancie is able to create pink gemstones, so hypothetically, if Diancie is made out of Rockurium and what it's creating is Rockurium, then Diancie would basically be the creator of all Rockurium, and there could just be another Diancie in Rockwa. We see that there are plenty of legendary and rare Pokemon living in Rockwa, like the Kanto birds, or Latios and Latios, Virizion. Those kinds of Pokemon live in Rockwa, so it's not hard at all for me to believe that, yeah, Diancie could be here too. And this all ties into Pokemon Legends ZA. Pokemon Legends ZA, the mystery is largely unknown, but I personally think they will go into the origins of Mega Evolution and connect it to a Pokemon, make a Pokemon responsible for it. Every other gimmick, again, we see is connected to a Pokemon. We know that Z-moves ultimately came from Necrozma. We know that Dynamax came from Eternatus, and we know that Terastal came from Terapagos. But Mega Evolution, we don't really know. We know it comes from this energy, but there's no concrete conclusion that it came from any given Pokemon. Sure, it might have come from the meteor that Rayquaza destroyed long ago, but that doesn't mean it came from Rayquaza. There's still so many questions of where Mega Evolution came from, and I think that Legends EA is going to directly tie it to a Pokemon. And you might at first glance think it's Zygarde, and maybe it will be Zygarde, but I think it will be also another Pokemon. Something interesting about the Pokemon Legends EA title is, of course, we're all paying attention to the Z and certainly to the A, because Z we assume stands for Zygarde, but what does the A stand for? But I think we're actually looking in the wrong place. Look at Pokemon Legends. Is it just me, or is it interesting that Pokemon Legends has this kind of pink hue to it, which is something that's absent from the design of that title in Pokemon Legends Arceus, the previous Legends game? So, I don't know. I feel like this is a tease towards Diancie, and they are going to connect Diancie very heavily to the plot of Legends EA, and also, ultimately, to the lore of Mega Evolution. And I think the anime will do the same by connecting Diancie to the plot of Rockwa, and we'll also tie Zygarde into it there, because there is a Zygarde active in the Horizons anime as well. I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I just think that there's way too many coincidences here for it to actually be a coincidence. To sum up, the A-Star Sundial, not only does it look like Rockurium, but it literally has the same properties of Rockurium, where Rockurium is clearly tied to Infinity Energy, and A-Star Sundial is tied to Infinity Energy as well. But let me know what you think. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and until next time, I'll see all of you later.